Hello, and welcome to That Quirky Bird Girl podcast. I am Steph, your host, and I talk about all things birds, and today I'll be walking you through what is travel birding. So I'm really excited. If you've been following me for a while on TikTok, then you know that I love to travel to see the birds. One of my favorite things to do. I have had the opportunity over the past year to go abroad and travel. I've been to South America, I have been to England, I have been to the West Coast. It feels like I've been to so many places, and I haven't really talked about them in a condensed way, which is a problem that I will be solving today. So before we get into it, I want to talk about a few things, a few updates to my page that you all will see over the next week. So I updated my Linktree. If you haven't checked that out since Monday morning, go ahead and check that out. I have new accounts up. I have a Facebook up now that you all can go and follow. I have an Instagram account, both for this podcast and for my own Learn About Birds channel, and the same goes for Facebook. I also added 2 new YouTube channels, so all of my podcast episodes will be uploaded on the That Quirky Bird Girl YouTube page, so be sure to check that out. If you are watching just the audio version, I promise the video's just a little bit more fun, so be sure to check that out. I will also be sharing some news towards the end of this podcast episode that I am so excited to be sharing with you all. For those of you that are watching the video, this shirt is none other than a northern lapwing, and it's very fitting for this podcast episode because the northern lapwing I actually saw for the first time in England, and its southern buddy, the southern lapwing, I saw in Brazil, literally along the border. It was kind of funny, but I've seen both of them, and I have appreciated and deeply loved the experiences of seeing them. Both of them typically will travel in larger groups, highly territorial. I'm getting into a bird before I actually get into the podcast. This is my excitement. I'm excited to share this all with you, so we're gonna dive in. All right, so that being said, I will be posting new podcast episodes every single Tuesday. That will be across my social media platforms, so expect to see that both on my TikTok, on my YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, across the board, y'all. We are going social media global. If you've been following me from the beginning, I want to take a moment to just acknowledge how much your dedication to the birds and excitement for the birds really fuels me and gets me excited to come on and share even more with you all about how much I love the birds and how much I just really want to be creating more space for all of us to be talking about the birds because they need it. They need more people allies. And that's what we are. We are being people allies to the birds. So thank you all for joining me along on this journey. If you haven't followed me yet, be sure to check out my Linktree. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but just want to mention it again for you all. So here are our lovely chapters that we will be talking through today. The first chapter is going to be what the heck is travel birding? And is it something that can be done on a lower budget? We'll get into all of that, no worries, y'all. Our second chapter is going to be about helpful tools, so things that are going to help you get a little bit more comfortable with planning a trip around birds, because the thing is planning a trip around birds is unpredictable. So you can't necessarily rely on seeing one particular bird as you're birding. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the unexpected and being okay with it. So that is our tools. And then our third chapter is going to be some planning. So where are you going? How are you getting there? Why do you want to go there? Your why is going to be the most important thing out of all of this. establishing why you want to see the birds that you do and how dedicated you are to seeing a particular species. It might mean that you have to take an hour-long Uber outside of the city because the bird that you thought that was going to be in the city is actually on the ocean side, for example. And so being adaptive in those kinds of ways and planning for those adaptations and already knowing how much it would mean to you to see that particular bird is going to be really, really helpful in planning a trip specifically for the birds. All right, so our fourth chapter is going to be just a little bit about my page. I'll be coming back to it, and we're just going to talk about things that you all want to see, questions that you all have, and how they can get to me as easily as possible so that I can address them on our nightly lives, which are 8 p.m. EST every single night. So I adjusted the time a little bit. If you were on or listening to my past podcast, then you know that I usually go on at 9 p.m., but we're testing out new, y'all. New is good. We're in the new year. We're learning a lot. We're adapting. Let's adapt together. Awesome. All right. So let's dive in to what the heck is travel birding. And I get it. You know, it sounds pretty literal, right? Travel birding. Okay, so you're traveling to go see birds. Yes, you can be. You can also do this if you have a plan or a trip coming up and it's not centered around birds, but maybe there are birds that you want to see. This is part of that. So even if your trip is not entirely around birds, we can still, make a day for you. Make a day for the birds, for what you want to see. I found so many times that I would go on trips and I wouldn't actually create the space for myself that I needed and wanted to be able to actually go birding. And then there would be times where I would go birding and I was with a second person and I felt obligated to rush my birding experience. And that is something we never want to do. So if you feel like you are traveling with someone, for example, and they might be a little, they don't necessarily understand your love for the birds maybe, or they don't necessarily have that same desire for you to stand around for 40 minutes waiting for a European green woodpecker to come around again just so you can see it for 5 more seconds. And that's, that's totally normal. You can go alone if you'd like. There are also local birding groups, so be sure to check those out before you make your way to where you are headed to. So for example, I went to a park that was in, what was it called? I think it was called River. It was outside of London, and Ted Lasso, the show, is the city that it's based out of is like the same name. It's just not coming to me right now. I'll remember it later. But basically, they had birding groups that you could see on Reddit. They would post the links, or you can just look it up at like local bird societies. They might have bird walks that you can join if you don't feel comfortable going alone. Now, going alone was something that I do feel comfortable with, but I will say being in a completely different country and sometimes not even speaking the language, definitely be more mindful of where you're going. And if you can go with someone, go with someone. If you can join a local bird group, join the local bird group. If you've never been to Colombia, there is a organization that takes people out in Salento. If you've never been, y'all, there is an emerald toucanet. It is so beautiful. It is this bright green. Okay, I'm getting carried away. No, I'll tell you all. It's a bright green bird with this massive beak. Can you imagine a toucan, right? We've all seen a toucan. Okay, imagine that. Paint it neon green. Yeah, that is an emerald toucanet. And they are absolutely stunning. So if you go to Salento in Colombia, that is a bird that you could see. And if you all are heading there, throw in the comments because I have a recommendation for where you can stay. Colombia is an amazing place for birds. And that organization that I was talking about is the Aves Andinos. and they are amazing. They took me out. That was actually, for those of you that have been following me for a while, you've heard me talk about the cock of the rock. It was a bird that they hadn't seen frequently, so it was pretty rare that we were able to look at it a few different times or from a few different vantage points. They're also birds that join in these communities and they like dance together to woo a woman. It's like 7 or 8 males and they're like woo woo woo, and they got this beautiful bright orange head, and then they're just doing their little dancey dance, and the female comes along, she looks around, anyone's dancing to my liking, and if they're not, she's gone, and then they stop dancing and they realize they lost the woman. So yeah, that is the Andean cock of the rock. So very, very beautiful bird. But basically what travel birding is in a nutshell is going into your travel experience with a goal in mind for seeing a bird, birds. It doesn't even have to be one specific bird that you can name. It could be literally, I want to see one shorebird. I want to see one new shorebird. And you can fit that goal within your trip and hopefully see that one shorebird or make that one shorebird happen for you. So I'll get into how to do that, but in a nutshell, that is travel birding. Nothing big, y'all, just kind of integrating birds in your travel and creating space that makes sense for you on a trip that you're literally going on. So there's that. In terms of tools, which means we are on chapter 2, y'all. In terms of tools, you are going to want to, 1, carry with you some research. So whether that means doing it at home and keeping a notes app on the side, that is something that I always do. I love using the notes app. So where I will get started with is I know that I'm going to be in this specific city for 3 days. If I want to do tourist activities, which I personally don't do many tourist activities, but if I wanted to, you could say, all right, so I want one day in London to enjoy, I don't know, like the London Eye or the Ravine, I don't know, something like that. But I want another day, a full day, to go birding. I want to be with the birds and experience the birds, and I don't want to feel rushed, because feeling rushed is not fun when you're with the birds. You want to experience them as much as you can, and you don't want to feel like, I don't want to feel like I am being like pushed out of the area. So that's why I mentioned earlier it's really important to be mindful of who you're going with and if it might be better for you to just make that trip alone. That was something I learned the hard way, that just because you love someone doesn't mean that they're going to make the experience better for you when you take them birding. However, I will say that if it is someone that you believe could get as interested in the birds as you are, or just some information that you want to share with them, maybe they're like a local that you met a few weeks before and you want to take them birding but they're not familiar with the birds in their area, it might be a great opportunity for you to educate. So it's all up to you and what you want with your travel experience. If you're going there to educate, then bring someone along with you. If you're not, then just enjoy the experience for yourself. You'll get to see so many birds, hopefully, and just enjoy what it is to be in a completely different area and see birds that might even remind you of birds in your hometown. This happened for me with the European robin, and when I tell you, every single time that I saw the European robin, I cried. Every single time. Never failed. Every single time. And it was because I felt so emotional about being so lucky to be able to experience the European robin, because they're so beautiful. And we get to see American robins if you're from the United States. You get to see them a lot. And experiencing them so much gave me a deep appreciation for the American robin. And so seeing its European counterpart, even though it's not necessarily in the same bird family, but I digress, European blackbird, thank you. And I felt overwhelmed. I felt really excited and happy. And so I hope that same experience for you all, because it absolutely can happen for you. it happens for me through links to other birds. So for example, I saw the Magellanic oyster catcher down in Chile, and then when I went to England, I saw the Eurasian oyster catcher, and I felt all of the feelings that I felt when I first saw the oyster catcher down in South America in Chile all over again when I was in England times 2, because it was like I was lucky enough to see those birds down in South America, and now I'm lucky enough to see other birds that are also oyster catchers literally halfway across the world, more or less. And it's just, you get to learn so much about how you experience things, and then you also get to just re-experience moments that might have been really happy. So for me, it was that case. Again, I hope the same for you all. In terms of tools, again, I said research, so taking to websites like Reddit. I love Reddit for looking at different birds that I could see in the area. You'll also want to, if you've ever used eBird, if you've not, it's totally fine. I will do a tutorial on my TikTok, so be sure to check that out. I'll have that posted across social media platforms for you as well. So TikTok's first, but others will come. eBird is basically an app that you can use and that many birders use to guide their birding adventures. And you can go into the app and click into a particular park or a particular shoreline on the, I believe it's Discover, on the Discover portion of the app on the bottom. And you can click in. You'll be able to see the different birds that have been recently spotted in that area. You'll also be able to see the frequency of them, and they provide this little map that will tell you when they are there. So say I am planning a trip for next May. That's 5 months out. So whatever birds I look at today on Reddit, on eBird, on even in a book, it might not be actually accurate for when I am going to see these birds. So you can use eBird in that little chart that I mentioned to make sure that the bird will likely be present in May. Again, there are a lot of factors that can sway this, so things like climate change are really impacting birds right now. So if you want to see a bird like the European oyster catcher, then you're just going to have to be mindful of how the weather and how changes in the climate are going to impact that. So that is eBird. It is an amazing, amazing app. Be sure to download if you are going to England or you're going to literally any other country, any other area. You'll need to download the pack for that area. And that will need to happen before you actually look up the birds in the eBird app. The way that you do that is you just go to the packs section on the app, and you can literally look them up in the state that you're heading to, and then you just download it, and then from there you'll be able to see some of the birds in that area. And then you'll want to do the same in your Merlin app. So if you watched my last podcast episode, I talked all about the Merlin app, which is so amazing. Cornell has just done such a phenomenal job in making the app so user-friendly. So you'll want to check that out as well, because Merlin will have more pictures just to get you a little bit more excited as you're getting closer to the trip. You'll want to take eBird, take your research, and find an area that you're going to want to go into birding. So we're getting into some of topic 3 for this podcast episode, but I'm not getting ahead of myself. I promise it's just some of it. So you'll want to document the parks that you want to go to. And this part's going to be really important because you won't be able to see, for example, a shorebird on an inland park. So you'll have to, if you really are committed to seeing shorebirds, you're going to have to find locations where shorebirds are frequent. So the app is a great place to do that. eBird being the app that I just mentioned. So you will go on eBird, you will find first the location, so just click into a few different parks. If you you want to see shorebirds, then just go straight to the shoreline. No sense in going through a local park because there likely aren't going to be shorebirds there. So you pull up a list of different parks that you want to go to, and from that list of parks you will click in, and then you will scroll to see the particular bird that you're interested in actually seeing. Once you find the bird that you're interested in actually seeing, and again, it doesn't have to be a specific bird. It can be a shorebird. It can literally be, it doesn't have to be like so specific. I'm a very specific person, so this is just a reflection of me, nothing that you need to do. Anyways, if you want to see shorebirds, look at a park along the shore and document the specific parks that you want to go to. I recommend doing for one single day at least 4 to 5 options. You never know what the weather is going to be like. You never know what the tide is going to be like because you're going to a new city. Unless you Google it, then you're already winning at research, and I don't even need to say anything more. You got it. So for the shorebirds, yes, 4 to 5 different locations that you can go to for birding. I promise it's not that many, and you likely won't go to every single one of them, but you're going to want to take a tiered approach for the same reasons that I mentioned earlier related to weather and just not really knowing what's going to happen. I went to the shoreline in England, and I was told that if I stayed out like 10 minutes longer, then the shoreline would have gone up like thousands of feet. And 1, that was shocking. 2, slightly dangerous for me to be out there, right? Because like if I was out there when the shoreline started increasing at the rate that the locals told me it was increasing at, yeah. So that gets into my next point. Ask the locals. Reddit is a great place for this, but you can never trust who's behind a screen. So you're going to want to, once you get there, actually start talking to people about what you plan on doing, not in broad, especially if you're a woman. Please don't do that. What I mean is just, for example, if you're talking with your waitress and you're like just casually saying, oh, I saw that there was this park and I was thinking about going early in the morning. Could you tell me how it is? You can also ask this to, like, if you're staying at an Airbnb, you can ask the host. If you're staying at a hotel, you can ask the hotel front desk staff. There are many people that you could ask the same question to, so don't feel limited in the options that I give. It's just really helpful to talk to someone who lives in the area and can actually tell you what it looks like on a day-to-day basis. So that is documenting your locations. You're going to want to put this in a spreadsheet-like format, so you can do that again in the Notes app. You can literally write it down. I used to have an Evernote notebook that I would use for this, and it's one of those erasable ones. That's really great because you can literally write in your experience going there as well, and then you can reuse the paper. So those are great options. Once you have the locations figured out, you're going to want to figure out if there are any specific birds that you want to see when you are going birding. So if you started with this, then you likely already knew the birds that you wanted to see. But if you're ending with this, it likely means that you started with the locations and then got into the birds. So this is the perfect time to pull up that app again, the eBird app, and take a look at the birds that you could see at that particular park and document which ones you want to see. So similar to the same list you just created, you're going to do the same thing again for birds that you want to see. Awesome. Next, you are going to want to decide whether or not you're bringing with you binoculars. That will impact your experience. And if you're wanting to see a bird like a shorebird, really any birds, I would recommend bringing with you a pair of binoculars. If you've been following me for a while, you know that my mantra is that you do not necessarily need binoculars to enjoy the birds. If you're going to a local inland park, I stand by those words. I stand by them. You do not necessarily need binoculars if you're going to watch a European robin, if you're going to a park that doesn't have shoreline, it doesn't have like high overhead trees, then I would say you don't need binoculars. But if you're going to the shoreline, if you're going to high overhead trees, I would really recommend bringing them. There are woodpeckers, there are birds of prey that you can see, and it'll just help immerse you in that experience. Again, you don't need them but it will enhance the experience. And because you're going there to travel, and you won't be able to return to this location likely for some time at the very least, I would recommend bringing with you binoculars, because you never know what you'll see. You never know. That is with binoculars. And then on the other side of that, again, going back to my last podcast episode, a piece of pen and paper. People, this is important. I know. You have apps these days, you have other things that you can use to help you document birds. There is nothing like putting a bird identification to paper. It feels like a massive, massive win. And I always really love doing that and then getting home and documenting on an app like eBird, because eBird does tend to kill battery, unfortunately. And so if you have a phone and you are very reliant on it in terms of your travel, if you're somewhere where you can't really translate or you don't speak the local language, don't use eBird while you're there. I would recommend, because it might just kill your battery and you wouldn't want to get caught in a situation kind of like me, where the tide might be coming up shortly and your phone is dead. So, not that the phone would help me against water, but I don't know. I just want to share it with you all. Those are your main things that you're going to want to have going into your birding experience, and then just come in with an open, excited mindset. And that is not just for you, that is also for whoever it is that you are bringing with you. Both of you will want to just you have your list, you know where you want to go, you have 4 options, you can make the decision in the morning of what you want to do, but try to keep it as fluid as possible. The birds will come to you as they come. So don't be too worried or too caught up in seeing a particular species or a particular experience that you want to have. Just let the birds come. I always found that in embracing that sort of mindset, I have been able to experience far more than when I went into it potentially upset about not seeing some birds that I really, really wanted to see. So those are a few birds, and in terms of planning, which is our 3rd chapter, much like this is the 3rd episode of our podcast. Okay, moving on. You're going to want to get started on planning your why. So this is going to be something that's really important in you actually arriving to the birding destinations. And the reason why I say that is because, are you wanting a brand new experience with a bird? Are you wanting an experience that is similar to the one that you might get at home? Kind of like how I was describing the differences between an American robin and a European robin. Are you wanting to feel completely disconnected from your home and just live in the moment with the birds and not necessarily make that connection? Those are going to be important questions that you ask yourself as you're planning and leading up to the trip. Not necessarily in terms of the actual execution of seeing those birds, but more so in your experience. Asking yourself those why questions will just help you build even more into what you really want to see and do while you are there birding. Oftentimes there is a call that you have to make. So when I was birding off of the coast of Liverpool, England, I actually almost left. Like I really wanted to see an oyster catcher so badly. And I had spent maybe an hour and a half at this place. Again, not enough time, but I felt like I had seen a lot of just walking along the shoreline and I wasn't encountering any particular birds. So I went closer to this meadow area, saw a Eurasian goldfinch, or a European goldfinch, my apologies, and saw a few other birds that I had never seen, and I almost left. So then I saw those amazing birds, and then I almost left again. I was like, okay, all right, saw those birds. That was amazing. I never thought I would see those birds again. Peep the American goldfinch. They're so beautiful. And the European goldfinch, they're absolutely stunning. They look so different from each other. It was amazing. So there was that, but I almost left. And I literally ended up turning around, and in the instance that I turned around, there were like 30 Eurasian oyster catchers. And I was absolutely stunned because I literally almost left twice. And so deciding what your limits are in terms of what you want to see, and if you are willing to stay longer, having that idea in your head already is going to be really helpful once you actually do get there, because it can be really hard to decide in the moment if you want to leave. If you're someone with ADHD, I'm someone with ADHD, and I often struggle with decision fatigue, which is basically just when you reach a point of, for me, it manifests as freezing, and I almost can't make any further decisions. I just feel locked in the decisions that I've made thus far and struggle to back away. So if that's something that you struggle with, thinking about what your decision is and when you want to make the call is going to be really helpful, because it's never good. It never feels good for someone else to make that call for you. Once you have the planning of that down, then you will get started in some prep right before you're leaving. So if it's cold outside, you're going to want to make sure you're bringing those like warm hand things. You're bringing the proper equipment to keep you warm in the temperatures that you're going to be in. It doesn't feel good to have an experience taken away from you because of the weather. And honestly, you're traveling. You want to experience as much as you can. And so planning for the unexpected is going to be really helpful. And that's basically what all of this is. Just equipping you with the most that can enhance your experience, while also making sure that you have alternatives when or if it doesn't work out. So doing things like keeping track of the local weather. There are sites, I think the Weather Channel, you can set alerts for particular areas that you're going to. If you're traveling throughout the United States, you can do the same. And it'll just help you know going into it more of what you want and narrow down on those 4 options that I mentioned earlier. And that is for each day. So if you have 4 options total for 3 days of birding, no, I would say you should have at least 12, and I recommend dispersing it across different types of environments. So you could do one day looking at a bunch of shorebirds, you could do the next day going to a local park, and you could do the third day just enjoying city birds. Okay. So that is some planning, and our last chapter for the day, and just wrapping up all of this information that I have shared with you all, that if you have an upcoming trip and all of this feels overwhelming in terms of planning, doesn't feel like you have the time, don't you dare worry, because I am here to help. In my Linktree, I have a link where you can go ahead and submit a request for your birding itinerary to be built out for you. There is some information that I need, so I will need the time that you are traveling there and how long you're staying, and I will also need where you are traveling. If you have any preferences, I'll include some areas for you to add that in as well, but this just could help alleviate some stress if you just don't have time to plan, and maybe you don't even want to. That's okay. There are people out here that'll do it for you, and will be so happy to do it for you all, like myself. So check out the link if you are interested. It is for a fee, so I'll have that at the bottom of the form. It does range depending on how long you are going for the trip, of course, so I'll include that all on the bottom of the form once you're done completing and filling it out, and then you'll get a payment request shortly thereafter. So that is a little bit of travel birding. I have been building up my content portfolio for you all and sharing with so many others about what my experience has been like thus far in birding. I moved to the East Coast, so I have been seeing a refresh of a bunch of new birds. So expect lots more content to be coming your way. And I just really appreciate you all joining. And if you're watching the video right now, I hope you enjoy my new lovely setup. It's just been so lovely to create this space for you all and to be able to talk about birds along the way. So like I said, be sure to check out my TikTok, my YouTube, my Instagram, and my Facebook. Y'all, I have got it all ready online for you all. So if you have a preferred platform, I'm going to start going live across all of them. So stay tuned for far more because I am so excited to deliver it. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you all soon.